When I opened the door, I expected my wife to greet me. Instead, she was packed and smirking. "I'm leaving you for a real man," she sneered, while her sister laughed. That moment, they thought they'd humiliated me. But they had no idea. I was about to destroy everything they'd built, without ever raising my voice. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 38 years old. And until that night, I believed my marriage was built on something real. Kelsey and I had been together for a decade. We met at a mutual friend's cookout in Austin, and back then, she'd seemed like the most genuine person I'd ever known. She was smart, funny, always planning out her next step, and I admired that ambition. I built my life around her, believing we were a team. That belief ended the moment I walked into our house after work. I expected the same routine, her waiting in the kitchen, asking about my day, maybe our dog barking for attention. Instead, I opened the door and saw Kelsey standing by the hallway with 2 suitcases and her phone in her hand. She didn't look nervous or conflicted. She looked like she'd already decided everything. "We need to talk," she said. That phrase wasn't a request. It was a declaration, a script she'd rehearsed in her head before I ever set foot in the house. Standing next to her was her sister, Lauren, who I never fully trusted. Lauren had a habit of inserting herself into our business, giving Kelsey advice she didn't ask for, how to handle money, who she deserved, how she shouldn't settle for an average life. Kelsey didn't bother with pleasantries. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "I'm leaving you." The words came out smooth, like she'd practiced them in front of a mirror. "I've met someone who actually makes me feel alive," she continued. "He doesn't sit behind a desk waiting for recognition that never comes. He's successful. He's real. And he treats me the way I should be treated." Lauren shifted her weight, folding her arms like she was waiting for my reaction. Her expression was almost satisfied, like she'd finally proven a point she'd been making for years. I didn't respond. Not at first. My mind was trying to process the reality that the woman I'd spent 10 years building a life with was walking out the door, without regret, without hesitation, without any trace of the person I thought I knew. Lauren smirked and added, "He's not some office-bound loser begging for scraps. He has the kind of money you can't even imagine. So you'd better accept this before he decides to step on you like a bug." They both laughed. It was the sound of people who'd convinced themselves they were too clever to face consequences. They believed I was harmless, predictable, easy to dismiss. But the thing about being underestimated is it gives you room to maneuver. I didn't shout or plead. I didn't ask who he was or why she thought this was the right way to end everything we'd built. That's what they were waiting for, some outburst they could point to as proof I was pathetic. Instead, I stood there and let her pick up her bags. I watched Lauren adjust her phone, probably getting ready to post some triumphant update about the fresh start. Kelsey didn't look back as she walked out. Lauren paused at the doorway just long enough to deliver one last line. "Don't wait up, Ethan. You'll just embarrass yourself." And then they were gone. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was deliberate. I wasn't feeling sorry for myself. I was calculating. Kelsey had no idea that her old tablet was still linked to our shared iCloud account. She hadn't bothered to wipe it or disconnect it. That single oversight told me everything I needed to know. She thought she was too smart to be caught. She believed she was in control. She was wrong. I sat down at the kitchen table and took a long breath. The version of my life that I'd clung to was over. But that didn't mean I had nothing left. I still had my name, my career, my discipline, and now I had something even more powerful. The chance to show them exactly who they were dealing with. I looked around the house one last time, letting go of the idea that I needed any of it to feel complete. The memories, the plans, the photos we'd framed together, those were hers to carry. I wasn't going to be the man sitting in a dark living room crying over a life she'd already abandoned. Instead, I opened her old tablet, tapped into the Find My app, and watched as her location pinged across town. A high-end hotel I recognized from corporate events. So predictable. When you think you're untouchable, you don't bother hiding. You get comfortable. You let your guard down. I didn't feel sorry for her. I didn't feel sorry for myself. I felt ready. They assumed that leaving me would be the end of my story, but it was only the end of the part they played in it. I knew in that moment that I wasn't going to shout or scheme out of rage. I was going to take my time, gather proof, use every legal option I had to make sure they couldn't pretend this was a clean break. As I locked the front door behind me, I felt something I hadn't expected. Clarity. They believed they'd won. They'd only started a process they wouldn't be able to stop. Because the truth is simple. The quiet ones are never weak. They're just patient enough to wait for the moment when action matters most. I waited 15 minutes before doing anything. Long enough to be sure Kelsey and Lauren believed I was just sitting in the kitchen, too stunned to act. That was the first mistake they made, assuming shock would paralyze me. In reality, I'd never been more focused. When I finally stood up, I didn't hesitate. I picked up Kelsey's old tablet and refreshed her location. The blue dot hovered over the same downtown hotel, the Fairmont Grand, a place where executives hosted their private celebrations. I'd attended a networking mixer there once. Rooms started at $500 a night. She was probably telling herself it was worth it for the experience of feeling special. I grabbed my keys and walked out the door. I didn't feel rage. I didn't even feel hurt anymore. I felt alert, like every detail around me had snapped into sharper resolution. I wasn't going there to confront them. I was going to collect evidence. The drive downtown only took 20 minutes. The entire time, I kept refreshing the location, watching the icon blink in the same spot. No sign of movement. They'd settled in. They were too comfortable to think anyone would be watching. I parked across the street, angled my car so I could see the entrance. It was a quiet Wednesday evening, and the valet was leaning against the stand, scrolling his phone. I stayed in the car, engine off, lights dimmed. A few minutes later, a silver SUV pulled up to the front entrance. The driver door opened first. A man stepped out, mid-50s, tailored haircut, a posture that suggested he was used to commanding rooms. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door for Kelsey. She practically bounced out, smiling wide, her hand resting on his arm like she'd already replaced the last 10 years of her life. Lauren climbed out after them, her phone in hand, texting someone without even glancing around. The man said something and they both laughed. He handed the keys to the valet and ushered them inside. They never looked back. I waited another 10 minutes to be sure they were settled. Then I stepped out of the car. I didn't want to risk being stopped in the lobby, so I took the side entrance, where guests sometimes stepped out to smoke. I kept my head down, phone to my ear, pretending to be a distracted visitor. Inside, the lobby was quiet. I walked straight to the elevators and waited for someone else to approach. A middle-aged couple stepped up with their luggage. As soon as they swiped their key card, I slipped in behind them and pressed the 5th floor button. When the doors opened, I moved quickly down the hallway, checking the tablet again. The location was steady, room 512. I passed the door once, casually glancing at the plaque to confirm the number. Then I circled back and stopped by the stairwell door, close enough to listen without being seen. Music drifted out from under the door, soft jazz, the kind hotels used to create a mood. I could hear muffled laughter, glasses clinking. Then the man's voice, deeper than I'd expected. "You two sisters are something else," he said. Kelsey giggled. "Well, you did say you had fantasies." I didn't flinch. I didn't feel the need to barge in or yell. That's what they would have expected. A sloppy reaction they could twist into a story about how I was unstable. Instead, I unlocked the remote camera app I'd installed on her tablet months ago. Back then, it was meant as a safety precaution. I'd never imagined I'd use it to witness this. I tapped into the live feed. The image loaded in seconds. The camera faced the bed. Kelsey sat on one side, Lauren next to her. Both held champagne flutes. The man was pacing at the foot of the bed, still in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled up as if he were delivering a presentation. "I've always wondered what it would be like," he said. "Two sisters, no secrets, just fun." Kelsey pretended to look shy. "Well, you're paying for the suite, aren't you?" Lauren raised her glass. "To new adventures." They clinked glasses and drank. I recorded everything. Not because I wanted to watch it later, I never planned to, but because I needed proof. Proof they couldn't deny. Proof that would matter in court. As they carried on, I stayed by the stairwell, breathing slow, steady. They thought this was the peak of their triumph. They were so certain I was at home, broken. When I had enough footage, I ended the stream. I took screenshots of the hotel reservation Kelsey had booked on our joint credit card. I emailed every file to myself with a timestamp. That was step 1, documenting the facts. Step 2 was preparation. I slipped back down the stairwell and exited through the service corridor. Back in the car, I replayed every detail in my mind, making a mental checklist. My lawyer would need everything: timestamps, receipts, recordings. In Texas, adultery and misuse of marital assets can change the terms of a divorce completely. They were counting on my silence. They were counting on shame to keep me from taking action. But shame isn't nearly as powerful as clarity. When I got home, I didn't turn on any lights. I sat down with my laptop and organized everything into folders. Evidence of the affair. Financial records. Messages I'd found on her tablet that made it clear this wasn't some spontaneous fling. It had been going on for months. Lauren had been coaching Kelsey through it, encouraging her to bleed me dry and walk away without consequences. I didn't feel hurt. I felt focused. By 2 in the morning, I had a timeline. The first meeting with the man, his name was Tyler Jordan, a regional bank executive, dated back 6 months. The charges on our credit card matched every hotel stay. The tone of the messages was smug, entitled, as if I'd forfeited my right to respect by trusting my own wife. Before I went to bed, I called my lawyer's emergency line. I didn't care that it was the middle of the night. When he picked up, I didn't waste time. "Mark, it's Ethan. I have everything. I want to start the process now." His voice was groggy but alert. "Send me what you've got. We'll make sure she doesn't get a cent more than she's legally entitled to." I emailed him the files. When I finally lay down to sleep, I felt no sadness, no nostalgia, just resolve. Kelsey and Lauren had chosen this path. They were convinced they were clever enough to avoid consequences. They'd learned soon enough that betraying someone who's patient is the worst mistake you can make. By morning, I was done feeling anything that resembled regret. Kelsey hadn't just betrayed me in private. She'd gone out of her way to humiliate me with her sister's help. That wasn't going to be forgotten or ignored. I started with the most immediate step, securing my finances. Before she could realize what I was doing, I logged into our shared accounts. I transferred my portion of the savings into an account only I controlled, legal, since I could document every cent I contributed. Then I froze the rest, flagged for investigation due to suspected fraud. Next, I deactivated her access to my business credit line. Technically, she wasn't listed on it, but I'd once let her use it for a temporary purchase that had never been repaid. I closed that door before she could think about tapping it again. Once the accounts were secure, I called Mark, my attorney. He'd already reviewed the evidence I'd sent overnight. "There's no question she committed marital fraud," he told me. "Using your joint funds to finance an affair is grounds for an uneven split of assets. We can also petition to deny spousal support entirely." I didn't hesitate. "Start drafting everything." "Understood," he said. "I'll prepare the divorce petition and a motion to freeze any remaining accounts she tries to open." While he worked on the paperwork, I turned my attention to Lauren. She was more than a passive accomplice. She'd encouraged Kelsey, cheered her on, and mocked me to my face. But she'd made a mistake of her own. She liked to show off. It didn't take long to find her Instagram account. I scrolled back several months, looking for anything that could be useful. Eventually, I found it. A series of photos from a yacht trip in Miami. In one of them, Lauren sat next to a man tagged as @TylerJordanOfficial, the same man from the hotel suite. I tapped through his profile. He was married with children. His company website listed him as the regional director of a bank with a strict code of conduct. I didn't need to do anything dramatic. Just let the right people see the truth. I drafted a short, anonymous email to the company's public relations department. I attached a folder containing the photos, screenshots of the hotel booking, and the messages Kelsey and Lauren had exchanged. Subject line: professional conduct, potential risk to company reputation. No threats, no demands. Just facts. I hit send and closed my laptop. By late afternoon, Mark called back. "Everything is ready," he said. "We'll serve her with the petition tomorrow morning. We've already filed motions to freeze her credit lines and any joint accounts. Her lawyer will advise her to negotiate, but we both know she has no leverage now." "Perfect," I told him. I spent the evening making a list of every shared subscription, every password, every household account. One by one, I changed them all. Kelsey had always assumed I'd be too passive to cut her off. She was about to realize how wrong she'd been. Around 9 p.m., Kelsey tried to call me. When I didn't answer, she sent a text. "We need to talk about this like adults." I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another message. "I see what you're doing. This is petty. You're proving why I left." Still, I said nothing. At midnight, Lauren called. I watched the screen as her name lit up and went dark again. She left a voicemail I didn't bother listening to. The next morning, the process server delivered the divorce papers to the hotel suite. According to Mark, Kelsey refused to open the door at first. When she finally did, she looked stunned. The server handed over the envelope and walked away without a word. Inside was everything she'd never imagined she'd see. The evidence packet, the asset freeze notice, and a declaration that I would be seeking full ownership of our home and business assets on grounds of fraud and infidelity. I didn't need to be there to picture her reaction. By noon, the fallout started. The bank's HR department contacted Tyler about the complaint. His personal assistant called Lauren to tell her the trip to Miami had been flagged in an internal investigation. Kelsey tried again to reach me, this time with a string of texts that grew more frantic. "I can't access my accounts. You need to unlock them. This isn't fair. Please call me back." That evening, her final text arrived. "I don't know what you think you're proving, but you're destroying everything." I set the phone down and didn't look at it again. Lauren, meanwhile, went silent online. Her Instagram post stopped. The comments under her photos shifted from admiration to speculation. People asked why she'd vanished, whether she'd been exposed. 2 days later, I got an email from a blocked address. It was Lauren. "You happy now? You're pathetic. No wonder she left you. I hope you rot alone." I didn't bother replying. Her opinion had never mattered. The most telling sign that everything was unraveling came later that week. Kelsey's employer, a mid-size marketing firm, announced she'd been placed on administrative leave pending a review of her conduct. They'd received a copy of the evidence. While I hadn't sent it myself, I suspected the bank's investigation had spread further than I planned. That night, Kelsey called again. This time, I listened to the voicemail. Her voice sounded smaller. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now," she said. "You've made your point. You've ruined me. Are you proud?" I deleted the message. The next morning, Mark confirmed the credit cards had been fully deactivated. The car lease Kelsey had insisted on keeping under my name was repossessed. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing satisfying about watching someone implode. But there was a certain justice in it. They'd spent months assuming I was too dull to notice, too weak to act. They believed that a quiet man wouldn't stand up for himself. But they forgot something simple. The person you look down on is often the one who sees you most clearly. And now they couldn't pretend they were untouchable. By the end of the week, the effects of my actions were impossible for Kelsey and Lauren to ignore. What started as an inconvenience, cards declined, a car towed, became something neither of them could control. Kelsey's first move was predictable. She tried to spin the narrative. I saw the posts on her social media, vague quotes about new beginnings and trusting the journey, photos of sunsets and cocktails at the hotel bar. For a moment, she probably believed she could rebrand her betrayal as empowerment. But reality has a way of closing in. On Monday morning, her company completed their review. Someone in HR forwarded a formal letter to her personal email. The wording was dry and precise. Violation of professional conduct standards. Termination effective immediately. I didn't have to send the evidence packet myself. I knew that once Tyler's affair became public inside his firm, the information would circulate. One piece of documentation was all it took for her employer to realize she'd misused company resources to cover her hotel stays, on top of everything else. The same day, Lauren's life took a similar turn. The CEO she'd been flaunting on Instagram, Tyler, had his own problems. His wife filed for divorce as soon as she learned about the affair. Once the divorce petition became public record, his company's board demanded explanations. The yacht trips, the luxury gifts, everything was documented. Tyler decided to cut Lauren off completely. No more deposits into her account. No more business trips. I found out all this through a simple notification. Lauren's public profile disappeared. 1 minute, she was posting curated photos of her luxury lifestyle. The next, her account was gone. That evening, Kelsey tried to call again. I didn't answer. A text came through instead. Can we please talk? I know you're angry, but this is too much. I left it unread. The following day, a process server delivered another envelope to Kelsey. This time at the hotel front desk. It contained an updated notice. Due to the marital fraud, I would be claiming exclusive ownership of our home, and the business assets she'd once insisted were half hers. Her reaction was immediate. She called my lawyer's office repeatedly, demanding to know what I was trying to accomplish. She tried to get Mark on the phone to negotiate. He declined to speak to her directly. All communication went through her newly hired attorney, who sounded exhausted when he finally called me. Mr. Miller, she's having difficulty understanding the position she's in, he said carefully. I'm sure she is, I replied, but it doesn't change anything. He sighed. She'd like to propose a settlement, some division of assets that allows her to maintain stability. I didn't hesitate. The proposal is simple. She gets nothing she didn't earn herself. If she wants to negotiate, she can do it in court. After that, the calls stopped. While she scrambled to piece together a defense, Lauren was experiencing her own collapse. The bank's investigation into Tyler's conduct led to an immediate suspension. With his accounts frozen during divorce proceedings, Lauren had no support. Her last attempt to salvage the situation was an email she sent from an address I didn't recognize. Congratulations. You think you're better than us? You're pathetic. You'll always be small. I didn't bother replying. Over the next week, Kelsey tried to reach out again, this time less defiantly. One night, she called while I was working late. Against my better judgment, I picked up. Her voice was unsteady. I know I've made mistakes, she started. But can't we figure this out privately? There's nothing to figure out, I said. You're trying to destroy me, she whispered. I'm not trying, I corrected her. I'm holding you accountable. Silence. I'm not the villain you think I am, she said finally. I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. Then why are you the one calling me from a hotel you can't afford? Asking me to undo consequences you created? She didn't answer. The call ended there. Later that week, her parents reached out. Kelsey hadn't told them everything, but the basics were obvious. She'd lost her job, her accounts were inaccessible, and she was being served with legal notices faster than she could read them. Her father called me privately. Ethan, I don't know what to say, he began. I didn't raise her to treat people like this. I know, I told him. I hope you know we don't approve of what she's done, he continued. I do, I said. Thank you for saying it. There was nothing else to discuss. As the days passed, the impact deepened. Kelsey's credit score tanked from the asset freeze. Her attempts to find another marketing job failed. Word spreads quickly in professional circles when your reputation is tied to ethical violations. Lauren resurfaced only once. I saw a new account appear under a different name, trying to rebuild her image. No followers, no comments. Just a string of carefully edited posts pretending nothing had happened. That was the most telling detail of all. Neither of them had learned anything. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry they'd been caught. By the end of the month, Kelsey stopped trying to contact me. Her attorney sent a single letter confirming she wouldn't contest the divorce terms. She simply didn't have the money or the evidence to fight. The final asset transfer was scheduled. The house would be mine outright. The business accounts were secured. She'd be left with whatever personal funds she hadn't squandered on hotel suites and designer gifts. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. But there was relief. For the first time in years, I was free of the illusion that Kelsey was my partner. The reality was simpler and clearer than I ever allowed myself to admit. She had always been willing to trade trust for convenience if the opportunity arose. Now she was paying for it, and I had no intention of rescuing her from the consequences she'd earned. 3 weeks after Kelsey stopped contacting me, I walked into the coffee shop I'd been going to for years. It was the only place I'd felt normal during the chaos. Somewhere nobody knew what was happening behind the scenes. I ordered my usual and turned to find a table. That's when I saw her. Kelsey sat alone by the window, her posture rigid, a paper cup gripped in her hands. She looked up and froze when she recognized me. For a moment, she didn't speak. Finally, she cleared her throat and tried to smile. "Hi, Ethan." I didn't sit. She gestured to the chair across from her, as if inviting me to some civil conversation. "Can we talk for a minute?" I didn't answer right away. I set my cup on the edge of the table and waited. She swallowed and shifted in her seat. "I know you probably don't want to hear anything I have to say, but I need you to understand something." "Go on," I said calmly. Her eyes darted toward the floor. "Tyler, he's gone. After everything blew up, he said I was bad for his career. He cut me off completely." I didn't react. "I'm not telling you that so you'll feel sorry for me," she said quickly. I thought I knew what I was doing. I thought I was making the right choice." "You weren't," I said. "I see that now," she whispered. For the first time, she looked genuinely unsteady. She glanced past me, as if hoping for an escape route, but there wasn't one. She took a shaky breath. "I'm living with a friend," she admitted. "I lost the condo. I can't find work. No one wants to hire me with everything that's out there." "That's unfortunate," I said. Kelsey's eyes filled with a frustration I'd seen before. The same look she used to get when she didn't get her way. But it flickered out almost as quickly as it appeared. "You think I deserve this," she said finally. "I don't have to think it," I replied. "It's just reality." She closed her eyes for a moment, then looked back at me. "Is there any part of you that remembers what we had? Anything that makes you want to help me?" I didn't hesitate. "No." Her lips parted, but no words came out. "You didn't just leave," I continued. "You mocked me. You lied to me while I was paying for everything you were doing. You let your sister treat me like I was worthless." "I know," she whispered. "No, you don't," I said. "Because if you did, you wouldn't be sitting here trying to make this about you." Kelsey's shoulders slumped. "I'm not angry anymore," I told her. "I'm not hurt. I'm not invested in what happens to you after this conversation. You made your choices. You're living with the results." A silence settled between us. "Ethan, I'm sorry," she said finally. "I really am." "I'm sure you are," I said. "But sorry doesn't undo anything." I picked up my coffee and stepped back. "Take care of yourself." She didn't try to stop me as I walked away. I didn't look back. After that day, I never saw her again in person. Occasionally, someone would mention that she'd applied for work at another marketing agency, or that she was staying with a distant cousin in Houston trying to start over. I never checked to confirm it. Lauren had already disappeared. Her online profiles never resurfaced under her real name. She'd become exactly what she'd once accused me of being: irrelevant. Tyler's scandal eventually quieted down, but he didn't keep his job. The last I heard, he'd moved out of state to avoid the fallout of his divorce. Meanwhile, I stayed in the house I'd built, the house Kelsey once bragged about as proof of her success. It didn't feel like a monument to failure. It felt like a reminder that nothing they did could erase the life I'd created on my own terms. Some friends asked if I felt satisfied, if watching them lose everything had made me feel vindicated. But satisfaction wasn't the right word. It was clarity. I learned that betrayal doesn't have to end with bitterness or revenge. It can end with distance, with peace, with the simple fact that you no longer owe anything to the people who used you. In the months that followed, I rebuilt my routines. I invested in my business. I reconnected with people I'd lost touch with while I'd been trying to hold my marriage together. For the first time in years, I felt like my life belonged to me again. One evening, I took a walk through the neighborhood. The same streets Kelsey and I used to drive through, the same places she'd once bragged about living near. I thought about everything she'd traded away for validation, for a man who saw her as disposable, for the thrill of feeling superior. And then I thought about what I'd gained. Peace, self-respect, a future that wasn't tied to someone else's insecurities. If there was any lesson in all of it, it was this: the people who treat you like you're replaceable are usually the ones who end up forgotten. And when you finally let go of the need to prove your worth to them, you realize you were never the one losing anything. They were.